Hi Whovians, Harry here, and in the most recent episode of Doctor Who, The Story and the Engine, that child that Belinda saw while she was on her way to the barbershop was actually Captain Poppy from the episode Space Babies. But what was Captain Poppy doing in Nigeria, where, in the present day, when she should be in the far future on a different planet? Well, this video is going to go over 3 theories on why Captain Poppy was in this episode. But before we get into that, don't forget to subscribe, also leave a like and comment down below, and let's get in to the video. So, this episode will just be going over theories from why Captain Poppy appeared in the episode The Story and the Engine. If you want my thoughts on that episode, I will link my review of it up in the cards above, so check that out if you haven't already. But why did Captain Poppy appear in this episode? So, the first theory I have is that the story of Space Babies leaked out. So what I mean by this is that the way the Doctor solves the day in this episode is that he takes control of the story engine that was powering this, spider to get to the gods that the barber had created. But the Doctor took control of the story engine and started telling his stories. And the story of Space Babies just leaked out. As the Doctor said to Belinda at the end of the episode, that the stories had started to leak out a bit, so maybe that's just what Belinda saw one of his stories. However, this happens, before Belinda sees Captain Poppy, before the Doctor takes control of the spaceship, so maybe it just, ripples back in time in, a timey-wimey way, but there is that plot hole, and also the fact that Captain Poppy looks different from how she appeared in Space Babies to this episode, and every other story is, exactly the same as it was in the episode that it is from. So I don't get why Captain Poppy would be different when every other story of the Doctor's is the same. So I don't really like that theory. But the next one I have is that the Space Babies are connected to stories. So, of course, in the episode Space Babies, the Doctor and Ruby remark that the teaching software that is, helping the babies learn and progress is kind of telling a story, with Ruby even remarking that this episode, it makes sense in, a storytelling way, even though the main premise of Space Babies is a pretty mad premise, but it makes sense as you have babies, you have a nanny, and you have a monster, so it kind of makes sense in a storytelling way. So if they're connected with a story and it kind of connects to Ruby's story as we went from baby to baby, then it makes sense why they could be connected to stories. And of course, because stories are being told in this episode, they are being drawn to the stories, with the barber being so powerful, the way that he lets stories be told, that the Space Babies are drawn to are drawn into this episode. And also, Anita Dobson, who plays Mrs. Flood, revealed that Space Babies connects to Mrs. Flood in some way.
Do you remember the first episode was with the babies, the babies on that planet that were running the spaceship? And I remember I watched it and thought, what's this about? Where does this come from? When I started filming what you're going to see soon, I thought, I think I know what this is about. Everything's tied up. Everything's done for a reason.
So, if Mrs. Flood is the god of stories, and Space Babies connect to stories, that would make sense why Space Babies and Mrs. Flood are connected. So, I quite like this theory, but it is a little bit tenuous. And the final theory is that Belinda or Ruby, or even indeed Mrs. Flood, are space babies. Now, I did a video a little bit ago going over my theory that Mrs. Flood could actually be a space baby, which, again, will be linked up in the cards above, so check that out if you haven't already. But just to go over it quickly and involve Belinda and Ruby, in like this theory that they could be space babies, is that Ruby's story revolves around babies. Literally, the Doctor and Ruby remark that they've gone from a story to babies to another story about babies. And there, of course, was mystery around Ruby's birth. So, since Ruby's storyline revolves around family and babies, then she could have a link in maybe some ancestral way or something to the space babies, and in turn Belinda could be a space baby in a different life, because if Monday turns out to be a Belinda splinter, then it would make sense why she has other lives where maybe she is a space baby, maybe specifically Captain Poppy. So it could be a link like the Clara Oswald Impossible Girls storyline, where there are like different Belindas all throughout time and space, each having their own name, their own story, and one of them happens to be the space baby, maybe even Captain Poppy. I know they look a bit different, but there were other Claras out there which looked a little bit different to the main Clara. And, of course, I already did a theory about Mrs. Flood being a space baby, and Anita Dobson, of course, did reveal in her interview that Space Babies connects to Mrs. Flood in some way, and, of course, this would be the most direct link to a connection between Mrs. Flood and the Space Babies if she was herself a space baby. And, of course, she connects because, like, her intelligence, her, like, knowledge of future events, and also her trying to manipulate certain events, like wanting the Doctor and Ruby to end up travelling together, and maybe wanting the Doctor to get back to the 24th of May as well. So, it certainly seems like, well, Space Babies is definitely important going forward, and most likely we will see Captain Poppy again in either the Interstellar Song Contest or the Wish World / the Reality War. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about these theories? Do you have any other theories of your own to why Captain Poppy was in the episode The Story and the Engine? And are you excited to know what is going on when the two-part finale finally airs? So, as I said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, also subscribe, and share it out. I will see you in the next one.